Oh, I'm live. We can start. Wow. Everybody out there? Looks good. Um, hey, everybody. My name's Jason Blevins, and thank you for tuning in. We are the Colorado Sun. This is going to be a discussion on the resort industry as a whole, the U.S. resort industry. We've got three just stellar bosses with us today. I'll start with Rusty Gregory. He just stepped down from top post over at the 15 resort Alterra Mountain Co., based in Denver. Just a genuinely good guy. He's had 40 years in the U.S. ski industry, coming from Mammoth, and really put that Alterra Mountain Co. on a pretty interesting path as he steps down, leave room for the new CEO over there, Jared Smith. Thanks, Rusty. It's going to be fun.
Great to see you, Jason.
Mike Kaplan is following Rusty here coming up. He is stepping down at the end of April, at the end of the season. Going to be his 30th year at Aspen Ski & Co. He's shepherded that company from, 4 amazing resorts in the Roaring Fork Valley to, incredible lodging and retail brand now too. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Jason. I'm happy. On my screen, I'm on top of Rusty. Just so you know, Rusty, I'm above.
He always has been. And it's just like him to keep working longer than me. Just a few months to kind of grind it in.
This is going to be fun because all three of these guys are pals. So this is like, they're all sitting around at the bar or something. Next up, we got Stephen Kircher. Stephen's family started Boyne Resorts in like the late 1940s in Michigan. And just now they've got, dozen golf and mountain resorts and 6-7 different locations. He's the captain of Boyne Resorts right now. And if you haven't been to Big Sky and seen what's happening with those chairlifts and some of the investment there and the layout of that mountain and what's coming with that new gondola, that is just one of the most impressive things in the industry right now. Thanks for joining us, Stephen.
You're welcome. Honored to be here, and I'm not going to follow the other two into retirement too soon because I got too much to do.
Yeah, you got more to
succumb to the peer pressure.
Yeah, there you go. So thanks for joining us, guys. Let me set the stage here. We're on the heels of the best season ever for skiing in the United States. Revenues are up, record high. Yields are up. Capital investments at an all-time. We're all selling these passes ahead of time and, kind of ironing out that fluctuation of snow dependence and roller coaster ride of finances that used to come with a dependency on snow. There's new models, great investment. People seem to be super fired up on snow. So we'll start with Stephen. What keeps you up at night as we look at this just on the surface, really rosy, snowy scenario?
Well, I've been saying for a couple of years, I think we're entering a new golden age for North American skiing, and I think we're seeing the beginning of that. Obviously, we're entering some headwinds on several areas, which we'll talk about. But I do think overall the industry and certainly the major players are in great shape to lead and to elevate the experience. And I've been talking a lot about how we are, if you will, trying to compare ourselves to the European experience. I think we have some gaps that we need to close, and I think we're closing them rapidly. And it's fun to be part of this company and the industry moving forward like we are, as rapidly as we are. So certainly having record years helps us, and it's going to take a lot of capital to make it happen, and investment in our teams, training, and elevating the service levels really across all the aspects of what we do. So pretty excited about it, but there are headwinds.
Oh yeah, they are. We'll get to those after we talk about what keeps Rusty up at night.
Well, the whole idea was to retire, or at least semi-retire, so that nothing keeps me at night. But at my age, there's all sorts of maladies that wake me up. But with respect to skiing, I agree with Stephen. There's something special about a business that's built around the pursuit of passion, and the dynamics, demand, and what drives it is deeply rooted in that for our guests. As people in the business, we've got an obligation that goes along with that to match the passion of our guests with our passions to provide provide experience that they're looking for. And whatever we gave them last year, if last year was the greatest year, it certainly was by participation metrics. Whatever we gave them last year, they're going to want more and different and better this year. And that keeps me up a little bit, but not as much as it used to be, because now Jared Smith, who used to head up Ticketmaster, who I recruited very hard to the role, is in that position. I have a lot of confidence in him and the team that he's leading. So I think we and the other companies represented here and the rest of the industry are really up to that challenge. And good things keep me up for the most part. And it's a ski industry. The wind is blowing somewhere. I come from Mammoth. The wind's almost always blowing harder in Mammoth than anywhere else. And that's just part of the that's part of the stick. We got to be prepared for that, and I think the industry is.
And Mike Kaplan, you guys had a pretty good year, pretty good season, and things are looking really rosy. Both the big guys and the little guys seem to be really thriving right now, and finding their sort of spot in this industry and where they can stay busy. How you doing, and what do you see as some challenges on the horizon?
We saying, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but generally when you're coming off of a good snow year, you should be very careful about making investment decisions, because you tend to have your rose-colored glasses on, right?
Sure.
So what keeps me up at night is, whether it's complacency or just getting overly confident, because generally, we're only as good as our next ski season. And so from a business standpoint, when we have a good year, we're like, pat ourselves on the back for like 3 seconds, and it's like, uh-oh, how do we top that next year and beyond? And of course, it's a good problem, right? As you said, when we get a strong year like that, you've got capital to invest, you've got momentum to hopefully maintain, but it continues to sort of raise the bar and keep the pressure on. Looking at these guys, I think Stephen and I were on a panel together at National Skiers Association it's like 2007, maybe 2006, and Rusty moderated the panel. He was the senior advisor moderator on that panel. But it was interesting then. I mean, we were worried about a lot more then, and I think the industry did a good job tackling many of those things, right? Access to skiing and price through the multi-resort pass has been a great solution. It's given a lot of people access to skiing that didn't have it before. And at the same time, you've seen our starting to attract a younger generation, and the millennials are out skiing. So there's been a lot of positive movement from the industry, and I think we're starting to realize that. And then finally, I just say, COVID, who would have guessed it, but it caused us all, I think, to rethink our lives and reflect. And a lot of people decided that skiing was very important to them and made an extra effort to emphasize it and make time for it in their lives.
And, you three have a lot of longevity in this industry, and you remember that. You harken back to 2007. 2007, we were riding a heck of a wave, weren't we? You thought just had the tiger by the tail, right? Nothing was going to, stop us. And then everything stopped us. I want you guys to maybe riff a little bit, because you've been through some downturns. You've been through, economic downturns. You've been through, the Great Recession. You've been through a pandemic, the rowdiest 2 years in the history of high country mountain town living, and the ski industry. And now we're probably going into some more economic storm clouds. When you look back on your sort of career of these ups and downs, what are some lessons that you can kind of take forward? What do you have that, I don't know, that you could share with your crew and your, maybe younger leaders, and say, hey, we're going to get through this. Here's how we're going to do it. And I remember this. I know this feeling, it feels like the world's going to, like we're at the very end. I talked to all you guys in March 2020, when it really looked scary, what was going on. So you've been through those. Stephen, what are some things that you lean on when it comes to the lessons learned in some of these hard times?
Well, so a couple of comments. So there's been 13 recessions since we started back in 1949. And I got to say that recessions are not really, from a ski industry wide perspective, not that impactful. Now, the Great Recession aside, that was certainly a more challenging recession, I think, but we still see resilience across North America skiing. The U.S. skier days don't dip much at all during recessions. There's certainly people pull back from ancillary spending. They don't buy new skis as much. They may, take more brown bagging, and less restaurant visits, that kind of spending, and they rotate down in their type of accommodations. So you get more value conscious, I think, with the customers, but we have not seen huge issues. I think that the message for, everybody in this industry is that you've got to be careful that the rest of the world thinks it's going to be bad, and your banking relationships, your cash on hand needs to be there, because you got to get through to the other side of it. And even though you may not actually have a horrible winter, your banks and other folks may think you're going to have one, because recessions create, a herd mentality around the finance world. You got to be able to have enough resilience to get past those difficult times. So to me, I think we can bore through a recession. That's not the issue. There's certainly going to be rotation from maybe certain destinations are going to be, hurt a little bit, but local areas or regional markets might pick back up. So it will vary based on some regionality. But overall, the U.S. ski industry is going to be very strong, continually be strong. Snow drives it. How snowfall is in different regions, especially those who are not dependent on snowmaking. That's what you got to look for. What kind of snow year is it going to be? And it's another La Nina, which I think is overall good for most of North America, not necessarily the Southwest as much, but we should have a good winter, irrespective of what the economic conditions are.
Awesome. Optimism is like runs through y'all's veins, doesn't it?
It has to.
Rusty, what do you see as some, I guess lessons that you've gleaned from some of the hard times that I know you've been through?
Well, I saw a lot of variability in Mammoth. Really the biggest lesson that I came away with all of that from the 40 plus years is that, Mother Nature owns a place, we just rent it. And it is, it requires all operators at all levels, if you're going to stay in the business and if you're going to be good at it, is that you've got to be good at handling the unexpected. Whatever the spreadsheet says, whatever your strategic plan says, whatever your forecast for the overlaying economy and market demand and all the data that we base our decisions on today, no matter what all of that says, something big or a series of big things will happen that aren't in the plan. And and running ski resorts or a ski resort well is really based on how well you can handle that. How do you variabilize expenses to go along with demand? What do you do in a great snow year where it snows too much on exactly the wrong days? And all those things that have kind of a lead lining in them that look so great, but in the middle of it, there's always an issue. And the most successful teams, and Stephen and Mike certainly run those. The most successful teams are the ones that stay focused on the guest experience, watch their money, but they watch their money in a way that doesn't degrade the brand. It's not a matter of just cutting costs and variabilized expenses. You have to do it in the right way. And that's the challenge and the fun of the business. You really never quite know what you're going to wake up to, and but you need to wake up with the confidence knowing that whatever it is, that you can handle that. Your teams can handle it, and that's really the lesson. All the planning in the world is very important, but what really happens bears little resemblance to most of the plans that we lay out for ourselves, at least in the short term, on a season by season basis.
And Mr. Kaplan, you heard your friend Stephen say that snow drives it. You've been telling us now for going on 20 years that it's not always going to be driving it. And you're on the tip of this spear telling us, this industry needs to adapt and make some changes and prepare for what's coming in terms of a warming climate and, losing snow and, some of the worst impacts. It's always kind of weird to talk about how that might impact skiing. It's going to impact crops and water and, decimate societies and communities, and the implications are a lot worse than our good times on snow. But what are some lessons that you've gleaned over the years looking at your weather numbers for the past 30 years in the Roaring Fork Valley? And they show, a definitive trend that is shaky.
Yep. No, for sure. I mean, we've seen 30 fewer days where it freezes at some point in that 24-hour cycle than we had when we opened, for example. And look, that's a big deal. That's a shorter winter. And of course, it's not like it just the abrupt ending day change that you're seeing more and more of those frost-free days and nights creep into our regular season, right? And so, it's done a couple things. One, it's really brought the reality of these climate models and climate change home and really front and center. And we've seen it obviously in other ways in our mountain communities. I'd argue everybody's seen it some way, no matter where they live now. And it's really, I think, spurred some action. And you're right. Of course, skiing is going to be the least of our worries if we don't get our heads around decarbonizing our economy. But we think, look, it's something people care about and something that we can talk about right now. And we think we're a bit of a canary in the coal mine. And so it is our obligation to talk about it and do something about it. Operationally, it's been something we've been, I think, all adapting to pretty well, surprisingly well. Great improvements in snowmaking, really managing every inch of snow with boot packing and getting out there and cat tracking sooner, and really trying to make sure that snow surface is pinned down and maintained. We've done, more snow fencing and those things, Rusty's point about wind, just really managing the snow and being creative and aggressive and managing every inch that we possibly can. And then the other side of it is we've got to be a model for change and how we continue to do business and offer great customer service and offer a great experience and be a great employer and tackle climate. And how do you do that? Yeah, you got to adopt all the efficiency measures that are out there. You got to push hard. You've got to get more renewable energy on the grid, and you've got to advocate, because at the end of the day, no matter how good a job we do in our individual resorts or as an industry, until we tackle this climate problem and greenhouse gas emissions nationally and lead at a national level so that we get there globally, we're not going to win. We're not going to win this fight. We're all in it together. So the final thing is be willing to stand up and advocate, because that is the point. Just doing it yourself and patting yourself on the back isn't going to get you there. You got to push your customers, you got to push your vendors, your partners, your elected officials to act on climate. And that's been the big push and really our approach.
Yeah, and you start kind of in your local community. We've seen that in all the communities where you guys work. You've pushed your local leaders to embrace these pretty progressive policies in terms of addressing climate change. And in that vein, I was hoping we could get riffing on the role of the mountain community. I think in the past couple of years, through this crazy pandemic, the real estate explosion that we've seen, which has triggered a shortage of housing, which has led us into labor shortages, and really, sort of a cascading waterfall of impacts that's coming down on us. And we're starting to realize that the real beauty of some of these valleys that we live in have a lot to do with the people in them, maybe more than the rocks in the woods and the snow and the hills. And as we, sort of come to this dawning appreciation of every person that is, so appreciates their place and is contributing and is happy to be there and is putting their energy into your mountain communities. I want to talk about how we work with those mountain communities and how you guys, I don't know, find them fitting into your business plan. You guys got to go out and make money. That's your gig. Everybody knows that. How can we better incorporate all the members of our mountain valleys, the dishwasher to the donor, your mega donor that Mike's got in big mountains of them. Like, how can we get every one of those folks on the same page and, maybe not looking at the chasm that separates them, but seeing what they like together? You guys know that's sort of been my reporting passion for the past 10 years. I like to go into these mountain communities, find common ground, see what we can all work on. There's so many similarities. What do you guys see? How do you see your local communities helping you in your business? How do you work with them? How can they contribute to your mission, Mike, on climate change, and supporting bottom lines and, appreciating guests? That's another thing that we've seen, kind of, this wall between guests and locals